Shall we start? वटविटपि समीपे भूमिभागे निषन्नं सकलमुनिजनानां ज्ञानदातारमारात् त्रिभुवनगुरुमीशं दक्षिणामूर्तिदेवं जननमरणदुःखछेददक्षं नमामि। चित्रं वटतटोर्मूले वृद्धा शिष्या गुरुर्युवा गुरोर्स्तु मौनं व्याख्यानं शिष्यास्तु छिन्न संशयाः। ओम नमः प्रणवार्ताय शुद्ध ज्ञानैकमूर्तये निर्मलाय प्रशांताय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ओम देहं प्राणमपि इन्द्रियाण्यपि चलां बुद्धिं च शून्यं विदुः स्त्रीबालान्तजडोपमास्त्वहमिति भ्रान्ता वृषं वादिनः। मायाशक्तिविलासकल्पित महाव्योमोहसंहारिणे तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये। राहुग्रस्त दिवाकरेन्दु सदृशो माया समाच्छादनात् सन्मात्रकरणोपसंहरणतो यो भूत् सुषुप्तः पुमान् प्रागस्वाप्समिति प्रबोधसमये यप्रत्यभिज्ञायते तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमैतं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये। So last class, I will go back to 5. Last class we saw 5. Since it's 2 weeks, I want to quickly little bit touch before we go to 6. So in Shloka 5, Shankaracharya merely introduced 5 schools of thought. 5 schools of thought which try to argue who am I, to establish this Atman. If there is something called an Atman or a soul, if I have to use a nearest English word. So in this shloka, Shankaracharya merely said there are 5 schools of thought and which were incorrect. And those 5 are given in the first line. Deham. Some people say, I am the body. Or prana. That's the second school of thought. Or indriyas, the sensory perceptions in the mind and so on. Chalam buddhim, kshana vidya, kshanika vidya is what Buddhist is, one type of Buddhist. We are nothing but this momentary existence which can keep changing from time to time. That is what we are. That is one thought. Then lastly, shunyam viduhu. The thought that the nothingness, nihilism is what they use in English. This is a powerful Buddhist idea. So he introduced these 5 schools of thought, and he said, Branta Brisham Vadinah. These are all, they are wrong. They are thinking, they are trying to locate themselves with these 5 and say, I am these 5. That's all he did in this shloka. In the next shloka, he actually takes Shunyavada and then he disputes it. And we will see why and all that. But shloka 6 is he left the 4 schools of thought. He went to the Shunyam Viduhu, the last one. He goes to there and he tries to argue and say that Shunyavada is not correct. And that is what he is going to do. But look at this shloka. Since we had gone through a little of Sanskrit course also, look at the 3rd line. It's a single word. 3rd line is a single word which is a samasa. And Sanskrit may look complicated. Sanskrit is not at all complicated. You get the signs of what it is. So let us break it. We can break it very nicely. It says samharine. At the end you have samharine. Okay? Samharin is the one who is a destroyer. Samharin is a destroyer. Samharine is the Chaturthi Vibhakti. Because I pay my obeisance to that person who is the destroyer. So that is what is the end. Now, question is, destroying what? So, moha samharine. If we go one step before, it says the destroyer of delusion. So that's how the next word attaches to it. And what is that? Vyomoha, mahavyomoha, those are adjectives. The great delusion. So mahavyomoha samharine, the destroyer of the great delusion. So that much we have come. Then it says, how did this delusion happen? Kalpitam. Kalpitam is created or manifesting or whatever. That is the word kalpita. So kalpita, how? Vilasa kalpita. Vilasa is the existence or the spread. Right? So this great delusion is created by the spread of something. Spread of something. Up to that we have come now. So Vilasa kalpita mahavyomoha samharine is a single word now. It's all samasa, compounded to create a single word. Now the question is, what is creating that? Shakti Vilasa, the spread of the power. So the spread of the power which causes a great delusion and the person who destroys it. So much is there. Shakti Vilasa Kalpita Mahavyomoha Samharine. Now what Shakti? Maya Shakti. So this word may look very complicated. If you very systematically understand, so then there is a way of combining. That is called samasa. So Maya eva Shakti, Maya Shakti, Shaktya Vilasitayana Kalpita, like that. Tatpurusha, all that we have to add. So finally, what is it saying? I worship to him who is none other than Guru, and that person is indeed Dakshinamurti. And who is he? He is a destroyer. Destroyer of what? Destroyer of great delusion. Delusion which is spread by Maya Shakti. And that delusion results in these 5 schools of thought. So that is how the shloka is. So the shloka says there are 5 schools of thought, and this is a confused understanding. And that person who destroys this confused understanding which results in these 5 schools of thought, that destroyer of that, I worship to him. So it is so beautifully a single word, which is a samasa of so many words. Very systematically if we put, we get Maya, Shakti, Kalpita, Vilasita, Mahavyomoha Samharine. So this is what we saw last class. Now what he is, in the 6th shloka, what he is doing is, he is now trying to destroy the Shunyavada. He left the other 4. He took only the 5th one, which is the Shunyam Viduhu. Now question is, why did he do it? Why did he really choose this out of the 5 and wrote the next shloka in which he actually destroyed this argument and showed that this is imperfect? So the question is, why is it important that he places an argument only against Shunyavada? There are several reasons. The first reason is, the other schools are slightly easier to dispute. Think about Deha, for example. If you say Deha is, I am the Deha, then very easily we can, it's much easier. If you take one hand, then your I-ness come down by 10%, doesn't come down by. If you take 2 legs, amputate the 2 legs, your I-ness does not come down by 40% or 20%. Nothing happens. Or if you are sleeping, you are not there. So is it possible your eye can disappear for some time and reappear for another time? So all the others are little easy. So Deha, Prana, Indriya, that Buddhi are all actually easy to dispute. It requires a little structured thinking and a calm thinking, one can do it. So that's one reason he left it. One can take some examples and actually show that argument is not sound. One can bring some logic and explain. Whereas the Shunyavada has actually has raised the level of the whole understanding. Because first time, see what is different from Shunyavada and all others is for all others you can argue with waking state and dreaming state. Moment you go to dreamless state, all the four will fall. That is where you kill all the four. Because you say you were dull and dead, you are non-existent. So if you are all these, then are you telling me you disappeared for some time and reappeared? Then it gets logical complications. So moment you get into Sushupti, the four schools can be destroyed, which the Shunyavada did. So therefore, Shunyavada is now the most important thing. If you hit Shunyavada, the others are gone automatically. In other words, Shunyavada came exactly to the same platform where Vedantins went. See, Indian psychology and the Vedantins took all the three states of existence. Dreamless, dream, and waking state. So that psychological plane Shunyavada came. So now you have to meet on that ground. And if you are not able to convince them, or if you disagree with them, then your philosophy is out. I mean, there is a problem. You don't understand what is right. So this is second reason, that the Shunyavadis are coming to the same terrain where the Vedantins have come. So it will now genuinely create a confusion, whether Shunyavadi's argument is correct or whether, obviously it will create a confusion. One has to resolve it. That's the reason why he went to Shunyavada and then wanted to break it open. Third reason is, what is Shunyavadi saying? Shunyavadis are saying in deep sleep, everything is gone. It's Shunya. It is nothingness and you exist like that. So you are nothing. So that is enough to describe you. So it throws the notion of Atma, the notion of Anatma, the notion of Brahman, everything is thrown out of the window. It says nothingness is your ultimate reality. So it is all nothingness and that's it. So that's why they emphasize on that meditation and all. I mean, it's all around that. So they say it's only nothingness. So it throws a whole gamut of things out and it creates a very different understanding. Brahman is not required now. So the pantheon is not required, Brahman is not required. You go to a state of nothingness and say that is what it is and the whole world is nothingness. So that is where they are trying to operate. So the Atma, Anatma, all that will be now put to jeopardy if you are not able to reconcile one way or the other. So that is the reason he realized that he doesn't have to explain the other things. Shunyavadis have very effectively argued and dismantled the other schools of thought. The Shunyavadis are to be now taken and one has to give that clarification. Otherwise, people like us will get confused as to what is right and what is not. Because this question is a very existential question. Who am I? How do I, sort of distill me? I can throw the Panchakoshas, Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, all that we can throw. Tell me who I am. That question, we may ask implicitly, maybe sometime, overtly, covertly, openly, but we have to answer that. So that is why he decided that let us try to argue this, take Shunyavada, and in that terrain we will show them that their argument also has a problem. It creates a little bit of inconsistency. So in the next shloka, again all these shlokas are good psychology, as I have been saying. Dakshinamurti Stotra has a lot of psychology to sort of think. So next shloka, what he does is, he does 3-4 things. The first thing he does is, he first goes to deep sleep. Where they have gone, you should meet them there. Only then it is possible to hold an argument and do it one way or the other. So he also goes to Sushupti. He analyzes the 3 states, waking state, Jagra, Swapna, Sushupti, and he also says, let's start from there and argue it from that perspective. Second, he provides, so in that process, what he is doing through that shloka 6, which we will see, is he provides a correct understanding of the so-called nothingness that both have observed. The Vedantin has also observed. The Buddhists have also observed, Shunyavadis have also observed the nothingness. He actually provided a certain understanding of what is the so-called nothingness. which they did not provide. He said, let me first clarify this nothingness. Out of that we will get a little bit understanding of what it is. So that is one thing which he did. Then he showed in three ways that the logic of Shunyavada, there is a problem. It doesn't meet the test of what it is. So he takes Shruti Pramana. He says there are several things told in the Shruti and it is not sort of matching with it. How are you going to reconcile? Because what you say is not being told in the Shrutis. So one is Shruti Pramana, where it doesn't meet that test of validity. Second is Yukti Pramana. It says it doesn't meet my own sense of logic. I will show it is illogical. I mean, that's a powerful logic, no? Showing something illogical is a powerful way of logically saying something else. So he says logically it doesn't seem to meet the eye. And the third thing he said is, I will take my experience. Let me not go anywhere. I will have to reconcile. I have a certain experience, I have to reconcile it. If I try to reconcile it, your argument does not stand water. So this is how he actually showed Shunyavada is perhaps not really capturing the essence of this question that we are all looking at. So also in the process, what he does is he provides a greater understanding of this whole notion of nothingness or non-existent versus existent. These words we are using in a very, in a smaller sense of the term. So he is trying to provide a much better understanding of these words. So we will see all these in the shloka. So we will first go through the shloka. So the shloka is Rahugrasta Divakare Indu Sadrisho Maya Samachadanat Sanmatraha Karanopasamharanato Yobu Sushupta Pumana Pragaswapsamiti Prabhoda Samaye Yapratya Vijnayate. Fourth line is common. So what is he saying? Rahu Grasta, the capturing by Rahu. So he is giving an example here. The example is the Grahana. They say Ketu Grasta and Rahu Grasta in our kind of a thing. So he says Rahu Grasta. He is talking about solar eclipse and lunar eclipse. Divakara Indu. The Divakara or the Indu is now captured by Rahu. Rahu and Ketu are very illustrative ideas. They are actually Chaya Grihas. In our astronomy, they are not the real shadow. They are only shadow planets. Shadow Grihas, not the real stars and so on. Anyway, so he says when Rahu, solar eclipse happens or lunar eclipse happens, Sadrishaha, like that. So he gives an example. He tells the Shunyavadi, you have not understood. What is really happening is, as much as an eclipse happens in which the sun and the moon are not available, it's not there. So it is something like that happening, and that eclipsing in the case of solar and lunar is happening with a concept called Rahu. So the eclipsing of the eye, the who am I is now in confusion. The eclipsing of the eye is happening because of Maya. Maya Samyak Achadanat. By this veiling, covering of this Maya force, that the eye is covered completely. So he gives an example. We will explain all these in detail. I am only explaining the shloka now. I am doing the Padacheda and telling what factually is contained in that. Then second line it says, Sanmatraha. So it covered everything, Satmatra. The existence alone was there. Nothing else. Sanmatraha. The existence alone was there. So we'll explain all that in some detail. Sanmatraha. Why? Why existence alone was there? Karana upasamharanataha. Why? Upasamhara is finishing, stopping, closing, temporarily destroying, is called upasamhara. They say we will finish the lecture, is called upasamharam karishyami. Bhashanasya upasamharam karishyami means I come bringing to an end. So you are bringing an end to all your instruments in deep sleep. Because you brought all the instruments to an end, including Pancha Karmendriyas, Pancha Jnanendriyas, Buddhi, Chitta, Manas, Ahankara, everything is switched off in deep sleep. That is why it is Sanmatraha. Existence is in its purest form. It doesn't have any frills to tag it. Sanmatraha karanaha upasamharanataha yo abhut. Abhut is past tense. He became. Yaha abhut. Sushuptaha. In the state, so he is saying, in the state of deep sleep, you retired all, a person, that Purusha retired, Purusha is actually the Atman, not the male and female. It's not that. The Atman retired all organs, all possible things, retired it, and because he retired all of them, Sanmatra, it was existence in its purest form. So that is what the second line is telling. Then the third line says, Prak. The ik becomes in Sandhi ig. There is Jalam Jashonta, there is one sutra, that's why it becomes, ik becomes ig. So Prak, Aswapsam. Aswapsam is again past tense. I slept. Prak, before, not now. Prak means before. I slept before. Iti Aswapsam. This is a Uttama Purusha, first person. Aswapsam is I slept, past tense. Prak, before. Iti, like that. Prabodha Samaya, when I get up, I said I had a good sleep. This is my experience. Nobody can dispute my experience. I got up and said I had a good sleep. Prag aswapsam iti prabodha samaye. When I say, only after I get up I say, oh, I had a very good sleep. With a lot of smile on my face, I'll say, I had a wonderful sleep. I am saying that. That is what he is saying. He says, Prag aswapsam iti, I slept before, iti prabodha samaye, yaha, that person, pratyabhijñāyate. Jñā is to know. Jnana comes from the dhatu jñā. Right? Jñāyate is known by him. It's a passive voice. Known by him. Abhijñāyate. Abhi is a upasarga which makes it even more. I have such a clarity of thought, clear knowledge. Abhijñāna Shakuntalam we say. Jnana, Abhijñāna, Samjnana, Vijnana, all those are upasargas. So Abhijñāyate, Samyak Jñāyate. It has been known very well by that person. Pratyabhijñāyate. Prati means I recollect. I know again, which means I know already. Because I told in past tense. I said I had a wonderful sleep. I had a good sleep with a joy, which means I am recollecting the joy. Because the joy has happened. I am only recollecting now because I am telling some event which happened earlier. That's why it is pratyabhijñā. Prati-abhijñā. Pratyabhijñā. So he says, the third line says, that person who gets up and says, and he recollects by saying, I had a good sleep. I had a very good sleep. He recollects it after he getting up. So that person who understood all these, he is Guru, he is Sakshat Dakshinamurti, I owe my obeisance to him. So that is what this shloka is. Now we need to understand why is he bringing all these and what is the psychology behind what he is saying. So that is what we will see. So the first starting point for us, for the whole argument is, we have to get into deep sleep now. So let's analyze the three states now. What is he actually getting? How deep he is trying to argue this whole thing. So let us start with the analysis of the three states. So there are three forms of existence of every one of us. When I say three states, it is three states of existence. There is a Turiya Avastha also. That is for an abnormal person. We are talking about normal persons now. Abnormal in the sense beyond the normal. If I had to say it like that. So the first is Jagrat, which is a waking state. All instruments exist. The Pancha Karmendriyas are working. The Pancha Jnanendriyas are working. Buddhi is working. Chitta is working. Ahankara is working. Manas is working. I am able to do all transactions. The Triputi is active. The Triputi, if you remember, I keep talking about Triputi, the tripod of the knower, known, and the process of knowing. This is a very generic framework. Triputi means subject, object, and the process connecting these two. So Pramata, Pramana, and Prameya. Pramata is the one who is trying to find out. Prameya is what is to be found out. Pramana is the means of establishing. Right? Bhokta, Bhojanam, like that. Same, there is a Triputi like that. So everything has a Triputi. There is a subject, object, and the process. That's called Triputi. So in Jagrat, Triputi is Pakka. We are having all the three in anything that you do. If you are hearing, then there is a hearer, there is a heard, and there is a process of hearing. Seeing, there is a seer, seen, and seeing. So the eye now takes different forms now. That's why it is easy for us. When I am seeing an object, I am the seer. I am playing a role of seeing. So things becomes very clear. So the eye is established. So there is no doubt about eye. When you are seeing, you are very, very sure you are seeing. There is no doubt about the eye-ness there. So the eye takes very specific meaning. It takes very specific role. And that is what Jagrati is all about. Right? So no, the question of who am I is not a big question at this level. That's why they attach it to Indriyas and Prana and they think that is what I am. So if you revel only in that plane, if you take only that plane for analysis, all the schools of thought will remain. Moment you go to the next plane and the next plane, some of these will get challenged. So the second state of our existence is Swapnam. We sleep, but then we dream. So the dream is the biggest Mayajal we play every day in our own life. Because all impossible things we do in the dream. And we only do. And we don't seem to have any logical conflict there. We don't seem to get very uncomfortable. What is this? How can I be sleeping and I can also play a match and also go to, Rhode Island or, 1,000 Islands or whatever. All these we never question, but every day we play this nonsense very comfortably. So, but the instruments all subsume. For example,
we play or it automatically happens.
No, we only play. Automatically,
Dream is not automatically happen.
There is nothing automatic. If dream is automatic, then anytime it should happen. Right now, you should be dreaming. Some people are daydreaming. That's a different thing. But anything which is automatic means it should happen, na? Why should it start sometime and end sometime? There is somebody who is starting and stopping. Look at the logic. If something is automatic, then it should happen anytime. And it should stop anytime, it should start anytime, it should have its own logic. It's not. Dream has certain conditions. You have to withdraw your regular instruments, replace it with your manas, and usurp the role of all these, subsume all that into the manas, and now you say, you all sit, now I will play. So somebody is doing all that. It doesn't happen automatically. That's why you don't get dream every day also. So there is somebody who is kicking the whole thing. So that I is what we are searching after. So instruments of course subsume into the mind. Mind now plays all the role. You are sleeping, a pauper without no food is sleeping and dreaming of being the Samrat of the country. I mean, what better thing you can ask for in life? Aram say he has a nice dream of sitting in a Simhasana and all that, but we seem to be very comfortable with all that. The entire functionality is available. We are able to do everything that we did in the Jagrat in dream. The efficiency barriers are actually broken. That's why, in no time you can do many things and so on. But anyway, we do it. I is definitely recognizable. Because I never said somebody else was dreaming. I said, I am only dreaming. I came and said, I am only dreaming. So everything is recognizable. I is recognizable. I is active. I am able to see. And how do you say you are able to see? Because I had a dream of a tiger chasing me and then I wake up from the dream. And there is sweat on my forehead. So it is enough proof that I am only orchestrating the whole thing. It is not happening elsewhere. It's not somebody else doing switching on, switching off. I am only doing. So all those happen. So I is recognizable. eye is active. It doesn't look as active, but we have every logic to conclude it is active. We can't prove otherwise, definitely. Then comes the third, which is Sushupti, which is the deep sleep, which is where these Sunyavadas have gone, and Shankaracharya also says, let me also come there. Let's have the argument there only. But I need all these for, this argument. So, absolutely instruments are not working in deep sleep. Dream is also gone. You're just lying like a dead body. Good sleep, no transaction possible. In both the other cases, transaction is possible. The mode of transaction, one is virtual mode, one is a physical mode. One is a virtual reality, other is a physical reality. All these are relative terms, but whatever. Nevertheless, transactions are possible. Whereas in Sushupti, no transaction possible. The transaction engine is shut down. That's why Sanmatra he is saying, we'll come to it. So he says Sanmatra. Samharana, Karana Upasamharanat, Haranataha, that's what he is saying. So, instruments are not working, not available for any transaction, no Triputi, there is absolutely no Triputi in deep sleep. There is neither a knowing process, looks like, there is no knower process, there is no known process. We don't know, because we don't know. We talk everything in past tense. That is what the Buddhists are saying. In that state, there is absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. So, Triputi is not there. There is no act of seeing, there is no act of seen, there is no act of seer. All those we are not able to. In that state, I am talking about that state. I am not talking about that state after coming out. I am saying, we are all in deep sleep. In deep sleep, all these are true. I is not recognizable. There is no Triputi. Clearly there is no Triputi. No transaction is happening. All instruments are not working. I am talking about that state, the 2 hours of undisturbed sleep in which we were. I am talking about that state. So these Buddhists are saying that is your ultimate existence. And since that is your ultimate existence, that is what you are. You are nothing but that nothingness. You are nothing but that Shunya state is actually your clear state. That is your purest state. That is all your realities. There is nothing else. So all others are you have used your own brains. You have used your own mind and your intellectual juggleries, and you have created all Maya, Gaya and all. These are all your vocabulary. Fact of the matter is, this is the proof of the pudding. It is all absolute nothingness. That is what everything you have reached that stage. That's what you are. Ultimately, you have removed all your shirts. That is your ultimate. Therefore, that is what it is. So, where are these two people, Shunyavadi and the Vedanti? So, both of them, first of all, recognize nothingness in deep sleep. Both of them are agreeing. There is absolutely nothing in deep sleep. Both of them have agreed. Only thing the Shunyavadi is saying is that nothingness is your true nature, because we have now reached the end of it, subtlest we have come, this is all. That is your true nature, and rejects all these Atma, Nitman, your own mental makeup. Don't waste your time on all that. You should actually strive for that nothingness, and you have to be in that nothingness. That's what that Shunya meditation, all those are all, into that. You strive to be there, and that is all it is. Don't waste your time on anything else. Rest are all intellectual juggleries. Don't do that. Now, whereas the moot question is, does really I exist in Sushupti? Because nothingness, everything has melted. Then this I is also melted now. They are saying I is nothingness. That produces a little bit of discomfort. So the question still is lingering in the mind. Is I also? And then what is this I that we are talking? Then when we woke up and came and said I, the whole thing is a little bit confusing. So that has to be sorted out. So if you look at yes, sir. Yes, Samadhi is the fourth state. Turiya. Sushupti is different from that. Because the biggest difference between Sushupti and Samadhi is in Samadhi you are mentally awake. In Sushupti you are not. There's a difference. I mean, you are conscious, mentally I should not say, it is not mentally, the mind is also switched off. Consciously you are awake. In Sushupti you are consciously also not awake. That's why you recollected everything in the past. That's the difference in some ways.
So can you clarify the word Maya? Is it a misleading force?
We are coming. Wait for some time. We are getting into Maya also a little bit. We spoken it earlier, but we will do that. So, this is analysis of the three states in these dimensions. Activity of the organs, waking state, fully active, we can vouch for it. Dreaming state, we can vouch for a limited activity. They are all subsuming into the mind is playing all the activities of the organ. So we are able to sort of more or less agree in a limited sense. In deep sleep, we clearly say no. Correct? Cognitive dimension, fully cognitive in waking state. You are partly cognitive because there is a certain amount of blurredness in our dream also. We see it, we don't see it. We recognize it, but then we also know it is not. So it is in between the two. So there is a cognition there, but it is a little blurred in that sense. So it is a partial cognition because we recollect the dream. We also recollect it is after all a dream, it is not what really happened. So that kind of a confusion is there. So partly we have a cognition. In deep sleep there is absolutely no cognition. Nothing. That's within that state, when you are in that state. The role of I in waking state, absolutely clear. We have no second doubt when I say I said it. There is no doubt about this I-ness, right? In fact, the problem is there is too much of I-ness. That's the problem in the waking state. It's called the ahankar. It's too much of that I-ness and endowment of sense of entitlement that you may be working on the other side. We don't have a problem of saying no I. In dreaming state, we are logically saying I is there. That's why it is obvious. Because I get up and see my head is sweating, so I am able to conclude I is there. So it is obvious. I can't thumb the desk, but I will definitely say yes, yes, yes. So the I-ness is still part of the dreaming state. In the deep sleep state, we don't know. That's why the Shunyavadis are saying nothing is there here. Everything is gone, including your I is gone. So apparently it is no, because we are not able to say that. So apparently it is no. We have no idea. Looks like it is not there, maybe in so weak trace that we are, I don't know how to explain. So therefore I can gravitate towards the no. It's easy for me to gravitate towards the no rather than gravitate towards anything other than that. But if you take the experiential dimension, that is experiential dimension in all the three. In the waking state, very really we have an experience. In the dreaming state we have experience, we also know it is a virtual experience. In the deep sleep state, we have experience because we are inferring it later. I got up and said I had a good sleep. So we'll analyze it logically a little later, but we can argue there is experience. There's no way we cannot argue there is no experience. So experience is there all the three. The moment you agree there is experience in all the three, first question I'll ask is, who was the experiencer in the deep sleep? In nothingness, if there is nothingness, where is this, however the issues will come out of it, which we will see. So far our understanding of existence are revolving around this. Existence means what? Existence means whatever we can experience through the whole vehicle of the kshetra, which has all the 24 elements, whichever way. Anything that you can experience through that, we call it existence. Science has taught us, that is a limited meaning of science also. Science is belonging to only that. Nothing other than that is all meta-science. It is not science. So that is one understanding of existence in our normal thing. Second understanding is what is available to us for all transaction. What I mean by that is, if you raise down the entire IAMB into one flat, raise down the whole world into one flat, then space has no existence. Notion of space is only when it is available for transaction. If there is nothing available for transaction, the notion of space is not there. Imagine the whole world is, every building, every structure is flattened, which is what the origin of the creation is, what some of the Nasadiya Suktam and all those are saying. It's only space, and this space we are recognizing space because something is interrupting the space. If nothing is interrupting the space, you cannot recognize space. In other words, anything which is not available for transaction, we dismiss it as non-existent. That's what it is. If these four walls are not there, classroom is non-existent, obviously. If these walls are not there, the classroom is not existent. So because it is not available for any transaction, so it is therefore non-existent. That is another meaning which we have. Third meaning of existence is, we always, whenever we say existence, there is a nama and rupa which are attached to it, and the guna. That is the only way we know existence. The moment you say, you qualify it. Existence is always qualified. That's what the space is. Mahakasha has no meaning. The Gadakasha has meaning. The moment you put four walls and then put a table on that and then put this thing, recognize it that it is actually a kitchen. Or you make four walls and put a blackboard and a whiteboard and a few lights and bulbs and a few chairs, then you suddenly recognize this is actually a classroom. You need some ways to qualify. Otherwise we don't know how. All others we simply say non-existent. Anything which doesn't fit into these calculations are non-existent for us. Shankaracharya challenges this very definition. He says these are all okay. These are all very, superficial definition. That's not enough. Existence, you have to now tear down this whole meaning of existence and see it in so many different ways. So we will see some of them. So we will take three examples. If I hide something, is it existent or non-existent? That's a question. You hide something for some time. So there is this camera. I just take the camera and then put it in here. I have a nice this thing, pen drive. I put it into my pocket. For all practical purposes, we actually think it is non-existent. But I know it is existent because I know. So the dividing line of existence is knowledge, anubhuti. Looks like. You had no knowledge, if I had some knowledge, then that divides the line between existent and non-existent. So if this Rahu Grasta or this eclipse of the moon and the sun was permanent, I am just taking an example. If the eclipse was, let us say, permanent, then for all practical purposes, sun and moon are on the other side. Not there. Simple. Or you get yourself into a dark hole, close all the windows and doors, make a dark room out of it. I am giving a hypothetical idea. You just sit there for your entire lifetime. Sun and moon are non-existent. Finished. It is non-existent. That's what you will say. Reality may not be that. You covered. So there is a difference between eclipsed existence and non-existence. You cannot say because if I hold myself into a dark room and I never came out of it, therefore the world does not exist. I can even say that. So there is a problem when you say like that. Second, non-prominent existence is not non-existence. In other words, what I am saying, if you remove the prominence, in other words, I can take it and put it in here. It's not very prominent. Something is not very prominent, then in common parlance we more or less say it is not existent. It need not be true. You can say it is non-prominent. The moment it comes to prominence, we see existence. So anything which is not prominent is not equal to non-existence, although we tend to do like that. Anything which is not prominent is not a non-existence. That is a very faulty understanding of the word non-existent. It comes to prominence, it makes itself more easily recognizable, cognizable, recognizable. Recognition is a word which is recognition. That is recognition actually. We say recognition. It is recognition. If something is cognizable, it is existent. Something not cognizable, non-existent is actually an inferior understanding of the word non-existent. Third, unqualified existence. As I told you, you demolish all these, the whole structure in the earth, then you can say there is nothing like space. Just because you didn't come with the qualification, you come to a conclusion it doesn't exist. That is another way you have comfortably taken a position like that. That is not true. You can say what qualifies an existence is not available. That is a better statement. What qualifies an existence is not available. That's not the same. Non-existent means space doesn't exist. That is very different from saying that I am not able to see that space because it is not qualified. Moment it gets qualified, suddenly I see space. So there is a difference between these three. Right? Eclipse existence is... So I have to remove the verses in all these three and put an equation with a not equal to. I should therefore say eclipsed existence is not equal to non-existence. Non-prominent existence is not equal to non-existence. Unqualified existence is not equal to non-existence. See, in waking state it is very qualified. I become a seer. I become a eater. I become a smeller. The Tripudi works. I am a smeller, something is being smelled, there is a process of smelling. If I remove that attribute temporarily, does it amount to saying you remove yourself? That's the question. You removed all those qualifications of you by getting into deep sleep. Just because you got into deep sleep and you removed all those qualifications, how can you say that you don't exist? This is the question which he is trying to actually argue. So this normal understanding that so the question is, an object is not known to me because there are three things I have given. It is not there. So can we say an object is not known to me because it is not there? I mean, you can say, but moment I bring it, it becomes, it is only a temporary thing. Moment I bring it, it becomes, if I pull the pen drive out of my pocket, the object is known to you. So it is a very transitory kind of reality, actually speaking. Right? It is not in my line of cognition. So can I say an object is not known to me? It's a very limited thing. It is impermanent, it is not permanent. You cannot create a framework out of it. It's very impermanent. You remove it, then it becomes that whole statement falls like a pack of cards. That is the point. There are no transactions happening. Can I say it's not there? As long as no transactions are happening, you can say. Moment transactions start happening, you'll be in trouble now. You can't use that framework and say that is what I am. You can't do that. So there comes the problem. In other words, so Shunyavada has certain problems in explaining the I. First of all, this whole notion of non-existent is very, very temporary kind of a definition they have taken. In that state there is nothingness. All you are hidden. You are hidden, you are eclipsed, you are hidden away and all that. Does that mean I don't exist? And that is the ultimate of my reality. That is a question which they cannot actually reconcile. But most importantly, then how did you find nothingness? You finally came to a conclusion, nothingness. To find nothingness, something must exist, na? So, I don't know is actually a knowledge. Please understand. I don't know is not no knowledge. No knowledge is actually a knowledge. It's of a different variety. I mean, it has a very qualified meaning there. Knowledge means on that. But it is a knowledge. So, if the Shunyavadi comes and says there is nothingness, he has actually disproved himself. Because there is something existing to claim nothingness. Otherwise, nothingness can never be claimed. So, there is a self-defeating knowledge, self-defeating logic which will create a problem. Second problem is, let us take it for the moment that he is right. Then now we are talking of the biggest Mayajal possible. Out of existence you want to bring existence now. Out of non-existence you are bringing existence, because this fellow got up next day morning and now you have concluded that your true nature is only nothingness. Then how do you explain this whole thing? That this fellow came and then he started telling something else and he started seeing, he started eating on bonda and all that. So how do you create existence out of non-existence? If nothingness is the framework, then the so-called whatever you see, how do you actually are going to get it out? You will also push all of them into nothingness, then what is the medium on which you are going to create that nothingness? So if you travel on that, you will actually come to the final conclusion that these are all transitory stages of the same reality. This is what the Vedantis are actually making the argument. So that is the first set of problem. There is a logic problem. It creates more logical problems of getting hooked to that kind of framework of who am I. Shruti is telling so many things which are not at all matching with this. So how do you sort of reconcile that? And third is, I got up and said I had a good sleep. So you want to now throw all my experience also as nothingness. So the experience is nothingness, my getting up is nothingness, my doing vyavahara in the world is also nothingness. Because you are now saying I am nothing but a nothingness. Nothingness is now taking shape of more concrete things. So how is it possible? So this whole thing creates such a complex problem, which is all Shankaracharya using those shlokas to, that 4 lines to actually resolve. Now let us look at Taittiriya Upanishad we saw. It said that asadva idam agra asit. Asad idam agra asit. We explained all these non-existent in Taittiriya Upanishad also once. If you may recollect, you will actually find the same thing in a different way we argued. That's why Shruti is supporting this argument. It is saying we existed as nothingness. So that nothingness has to be understood properly. Nothingness means not cognizable, not available for transaction. It is potentially existent. Bijasyanti rivanguro jagadidam praknir vikalpam punahan Dakshinamurti Stotram. The tree is in the seed. It is potentially existent. The tree. So the waking state is potentially existent in the dream state. The dream state and the waking state is potentially existent in Sushupti. That is the meaning of nothingness. Has to be non-existent, has to be properly defined. This loose definition is not correct. So he is actually broadening the understanding of these words. What is non-existent? He is trying to give a meaning to it. That the Chandogya Upanishad very clearly says that. Look at here. Sadeva, there is said Asadeva. It says Sadeva Saumya Idamagra Asit. Ekameva Dvitiyam. One. There is nothing two. Dhamma is the whole world, there is only oneness. Nothing is second. Tadhaika ahuhu asadeva idamagra asid ekameva dvitiyam tasmat asataha sanjay. Then this boy says, if you say, oh, that eva people say that it all existed as non-existence, one asadeva asit idamagra, and all sad came out of it, how is it possible? That's what the question is asked here. He says, tasmat asataha sanjayata. From asad all these came. From nothingness, from asat, sat came. Then immediately the Chandogya Upanishad says, kutaha tu kalu, how is it possible? How can you get something out of nothing? Kutastu kalu saumya asyad iti hovacha. How will it happen? Let me explain. Katam asataha sanjayate iti. How can it come out of asat? Satveva saumya idamagra asid ekameva dvitiyam. Say the asat is only a certain, loose definition we are using. It is not non-existent, it is potentially existent, it is not available for transaction, it is not qualified, it is not visible. Therefore we thought it is sat, asat, it is actually sat. In Bhagavad Gita also it says, no? Nasate vidyato bhavaha nabhave vidyato sataha. In chapter 2 it is there. Krishna says you can't get his law of conservation of mass and that kind of a thing. You can't get something out of nothing. So that nothingness is difficult to hold on. Shruti, there are many references, I just pulled a couple of them. Then Maya Samachadana, if you go to the shloka now, let me go to the shloka. So what is he saying? He is using the eclipse reality first. The Rahugrasta Divakarendra Sadrushaho. Just like the sun and moon are temporarily hidden, please don't come to a conclusion that the other side is nothingness. There is sun and moon. In the same way, your eye is now shrouded by Maya. So what is this Maya? What is this shrouding business that you are talking about? So that is what he explains in Viveka Chudamani. All these definitions are there. In chapter 14 of Bhagavad Gita, we saw all that actually. Eclipsed existence or concealed existence. Every day you conceal yourself completely for 2-3 hours in the name of deep sleep, and now you come to a conclusion, use that 3 hours and then explain the remaining 24 hours with nothingness. He says, no, that's not what it is. There is a illogicality there. So, ekam eva advitiyam, one alone, nothing second. From that one only everything came. Ekam eva advitiyam. Wow, the world of names and shapes, 6 billion creatures, endless varieties of raw material and insects and plant kingdom all came from one source, primordial single source. It existed itself as a single. Why do you go that far? Your Mahakasha, if you have to understand your Gadakasha. One small lump, one embryo, when the two things join and become embryo, out of that a complex structure has come, no? Ekameva dvitiyam asit. Then it folded itself into a leg and a hand, and then one lump of flesh folded itself 256 times and it became some complex walls called a heart. So you can look at your Gadakasha to understand Mahakasha. Here also ekameva dvitiyam. Ekameva dvitiyam asit. Everything is just that it started with one, it's multiplied. The seed was just one entity, it became branch, tree, leaves, fruits, name what more? That is what it is saying. Ekameva advitiyam idamagra asit. All creation must start with oneness. The creation of this human being also starts with oneness. That's what it is. So he says, what is this eclipse happening? So that's where this whole concept of Maya is coming, right? He says, Avyakta namni paramesha shaktihi anadi avidya. All those are in sandhi. Shaktihi and then anadi. The rakara comes because of the visarga. Visarga and sandhi become repa, no? So shaktirana, shaktira, all those are shaktihi, anadi, avidya, anadya vidya. Paramesha shaktir anadya vidya. That's how it is. You break it, Sanskrit will become very simple. Sandhi alone you learn, most of your Sanskrit will become simpler. It's a small chapter in Laghu Siddhanta Kaumudi. Learn the Sandhi and understand it, most of the Sanskrit will become simpler. So, Paramesha Shaktihi, Anadi, Avidya, Trigunatmika. It is composed of 3 gunas. It is beginningless, endless. It is all avidya. It is not vidya. It is not knowledge. It is ignorance. Right? Para, it is also coming from the cosmic force. Karyanumeya sudhiyaiva maya. It is only putting you into all this action. That is the driving force for all that we are doing. Right? Jagat sarvamidam prasuyate. This is what weaves this world of activities and transactions. Everything comes out of Maya. This is a simple definition of Maya. Actually, the definition of Maya is, if you use a set theory, Maya is equal to Avarana Shakti plus Vikshepa Shakti. It's a simple idea which I talked earlier also. If you have to see a snake in a rope, there are 2 important conditions for that to happen. First, it's a dimly lit room. Given that condition, in a rope, if you have to see snake, perfectly it generates so much fear in me. Until I get a torch or a switch on the light and see, there's so much fear in me, which means I am actually seeing snake. So if I have to see snake in a rope, 2 things are required. First thing is, the ropeness must be covered. Even if there is an iota of ropeness, you will begin to think it is rope. The ropeness must be first covered. Moment you have covered the ropeness, then all adjacency of ropeness can be mounted on the top of it. You need these 2. If you have to get deluded, this is what life is. In life, if you have to get deluded, the original property must be first covered. Once the original property is covered, then it gives room for putting anything on the top of it. Now the originality is gone. So the covering is called avarana. Moment you have covered, then vikshepa. You can throw anything on it. So seeing a snake in a rope requires these 2 conditions. This is the Maya. Maya brings 2 forces. One is called Avarana Shakti. One is called Vikshepa Shakti. Moment he throws the Vikshepa Shakti, then we will get into action. You see, rope, you see a snake, then you, in that example, you look for a stick, you call a snake charmer, current is not there, you look for a torchlight, the world of activity starts. So Vikshepa Shakti is required for Rajas. I am connecting to the gunas. The world of activity we are doing because we have Vikshepa Shakti. We think this is our goal in life. We think this is what is ultimate cause of bliss. And wrong mapping, and then it promotes a lot of activities, we go there. The whole Rajas happens because of Vikshepa Shakti. And first of all, in order to all that happen, you cover it first. That is the tamas. Now in sleep what happens is, it removes the Vikshepa Shakti. Maya, this two part, deep sleep is a mechanism in which Vikshepa Shakti is removed. Now it is all only tamas. Which means, it is like pitch dark in this room. So you don't have, that will be actually a snake. Now you don't even know it is a rope or a snake, that is actually a snake. But the room is pitch dark. Room is pitch dark, there is nothing to do. You will be dull, dead, inert. I mean, in that limited perspective of chasing the snake or all, you will be dull, dead and inert. No knowledge, no the thing, it's all in ignorance. You are blissfully ignorant of a cobra which is there because the room is pitch dark. That is what is called sleep. That is what is called deep sleep, Sushupti. It's all ignorance. Actually, ignorance is also bliss. That's why Samadhi is also bliss, deep sleep is also bliss. But one bliss will not take you anywhere because it is a bliss out of ignorance, not out of knowledge. In Samadhi, it is bliss out of knowledge. In deep sleep, it is a bliss out of ignorance. That is the difference. So, technical definitions are there. We will see it in the next class. Already 7:3. We will see it in the next class.